My name is Brandon Shanoth. I started Epic about 15 years ago, really with a simple vision. I was a former worship leader and I was an artist. I got to do a lot of interesting things. Turns out I wasn't that talented of a worship leader, but I really had a gift for technology. And so Epic comes out of that experience.
You know, we do mostly churches. So for us, what we don't want is to have grandma sitting in the middle of the room just getting hammered and her grandson sitting 2 seats over and goes, "Where's the bass?"
Designing an experience for House of Worship is a really unique challenge, really because you are trying to interpret the vision of someone who has only ever seen it from the stage. So the first challenge is really understanding what they're after.
We really try to personalize everything to that client and the needs and what kind of ministry they're doing, you know.
One of our primary goals was to build a facility and a room that would absolutely impact people for the message that we have. And that's what Christ did for us on the cross in His resurrection. But to communicate that message today requires some creativity and grabbing people's attention. We hope for an immersive experience in our worship services where everything we do matters. From the video that plays at the beginning or a song that we do at the beginning, all the way to a prayer that's prayed or a message that's presented. So this room, this PA, all the arts come together, hopefully to communicate one thing so that the folks walk away with the big idea of the day. It's such a joy to dream something in your mind and get a team of people around you that catch that dream and know how to get you there.
121 Community Church is the least compromised sonic facility that we have ever worked on. The room was designed and then the rest of the building was organized around it. It really was a high priority to get the sonic experience right, and that everything sort of cascades from that.
Our design and installer, they took us to a place where we had a D show and an S6L side by side. They threw some content on the D show and I was like, oh yeah, that's what a D show is supposed to sound like, and that's the way that music's supposed to sound like. And then we flipped over to the S6L, exact same thing, and it was like the color came into the room. And so what's amazing is we can create things in a studio environment that translates just as well in a live environment.
The S6L, just the audio quality, that was our paramount thing we wanted to improve because we knew what was coming acoustically. So we wanted to match that with a console that would be completely transparent. So whatever we were delivering from the stage, whatever front of house is delivering from front of house, that's what people heard. And that's exactly what we got out of the S6L.
We preferred Venue for a long time. Very simple, it just sounds better per dollar. For the cost of a Venue console against competitors, to me, it sounds more pure, it sounds more open, more conducive to the elegance and clarity that you need in a worship context, with the impact you need, sort of immersive impact you need in a worship context.
And we also were floored by the flexibility of the console, and we knew that would be good for our volunteers.
Our guys are all volunteer. They all have 9-to-5 jobs, and then they come to a rehearsal on Thursday nights. We run through a sound check, do our full rehearsal, and then using the Pro Tools rig that we have at front of house, they'll play back through virtual sound check.
Virtual sound check is by far one of the most immeasurable tools we use because they record the entire rehearsal. It actually makes our rehearsals more efficient because we can work on our music, get our stuff done, and then we can be done.
And that gives me a chance to sit down and we can tweak compressors or delays and EQs, anything.
So when we come in Sunday morning for our last rehearsal, it sounds amazing already, and they just brush it off and polish it up and we're ready to go. And our Sundays are pretty flawless from an audio standpoint because of what virtual sound check allows us to do.
We are a multi-site campus. We have 3 campuses. The main campus is in Argyle, and it's 1,400 seats. As technology grows, you're always looking for the next best thing. We were on a profile mix rack, so we were legacy. And of course, as things grow, you run out of channels. As you run out of channels, you also run out of bus structure. So we were really looking for a flexible console with more channels and more outputs.
Especially for their monitors, they were moving from doing personal in-ear mixers to dedicated monitor mixing off of a monitor desk. So they really needed large, not only input channel counts, but outputs.
When we started reading the specs of the S6L, it just seemed to fit with what we had and where we wanted to go.
We ended up contacting Avid, brought in an S6L, and actually did a side-by-side shootout with a D-Show. I brought my presets in, pulled up my exact same preset from my D-Show and pulled it up there, and it just had this cohesiveness that it didn't have before. Depth, the stereo width of everything, not just direct instruments, but the size and width of the reverbs, and it was really pretty staggering. And every one of the people that came to that shootout ended up buying one. So it was a good shootout.
The transition from Profile to S6L was pretty seamless. To me, it's the same layout, it's the same flow. The sound of the desk versus the Profile is astronomically better. When I'm mixing ears here, the space of the console is unreal. I'm able to put stuff in places where singers never thought they could hear. The musicians noticed a massive difference immediately.
The real challenge is knowing exactly where to meet them. We are technically capable of doing just about anything, but really knowing which way to point it, how to steer it, that's the hardest part by far. We know how to translate someone's vision into something that has high ministry value week in and week out.
I actually started out with Venue consoles with the D-Show. I loved the interface, I loved just how robust it was, but I had complaints. Like, I felt like I had to live on a keyboard, I had to live on a mouse. It wasn't very tactile. And so when S6L came out, I really saw that now I'm into the faders, I'm into the desk. I'm not even hardly paying attention to the screen that used to be my only crutch, the only thing I could use.
Everybody loved the workflow. The ability to organize it is much more flexible than the previous work service. You can make it sort of be whatever you need for your particular context.
Snapshots are a huge part of what we do, especially when you're programming and you're rehearsing, you're putting in the hours to just make sure that it's just right. And S6L to me does that better than anyone. It was really refreshing to see kind of not only a change in workflow and taking a more modern approach to mixing, but also just the sound quality, just absolutely outstanding.
The D-Show sounded great. This is a pretty massive evolution.
So to have a pastor or a worship pastor come up and make comments, of course we want to hear, wow, it sounds amazing, but on top of that, to go, we've just never heard him sing like that. I think that's the ultimate goal.
The overall kind of mission statement for worship technology here is just excellence. So that was kind of how we entered into this, and that's why we went with Epic, because they've had a great track record with all sorts of installations that they've done.
The different types of instruments involved for the first services are, it's band, so it's bass, drums, guitar, keyboard, and then 3 vocalists.
And then their next service is a full orchestral thing with those elements as well.
My goal when I'm mixing live every Sunday for both services to make sure it's musical, to make sure the choir sounds big and full, and orchestra as well.
And within 2 hours of each other, to go from something that's, you know, warm and pillowy and very melodic to something that's got more attack and you know, punch to it. And this console is a really great choice for that. The versatility that it has, I think, is going to be a great benefit to them.
We have a this very specific goal. We need to make Sunday work every Sunday. And reliability, you know, if something blows up on Sunday morning, that's a tough day. That's a tough phone call for us to get, my staff to get. So there's brands that have really stepped up for us. We're really into Avid consoles. They're our first choice. In every project we do, we're looking for high value, easily accessible to volunteers, and reliability. Every choice we make kind of goes through that grid.
It's a real honor to work with First Baptist Arlington. I mean, this is a generational church, and you'll have grandfathers with their sons, with their grandkids. Just to be a part of, you know, taking them to the next step, you know, getting them prepared for that next generation that's coming. I mean, that's a real honor for Epic, and trying to deliver something to them that they can be proud of for generations. You know, that's a big deal.
The way we choose products and the way we design speak to that. Really, front to back, every seat matters. How hard can we work, and what tools can we use to make that possible?